It's Saturday, February 21st, 2015, and most of the NASCAR Cup Series drivers are relaxing, watching the Xfinity Series run their Saturday race as they prepare for the Daytona 500 on the following day. Some drivers, though, thought they'd try their luck to win the lower series race. Dale Jr., Brad Keselowski, Kyle Larson, a few others, and crucially, Kyle Busch. These bushwhackers did pretty well, leading just over half the laps in the race. Things were going especially smoothly for Kyle Busch, who had led the most laps on the night. But everything that once looked so promising fell apart in one swift instant.
Eric Jones around, back across the field. The big one, part 2 at Daytona. A horrific crash for Kyle Busch, who slid through the infield grass and went head on into the inside wall.
NASCAR is cruel. Despite all the safety improvements, racing is still a dangerous sport, and Kyle still managed to find his way into a concrete wall, and with it came a badly broken leg. He would miss the first 11 races of the Cup season, a total of a 3-month absence. Kyle Busch stocks were now nearing an all-time low, but it was more than just a crash in a lower series race that did that. Let's take a step back to the beginning for the Candyman. To say that Kyle Busch had a bit of a temper problem in the early years of his career would be a severe understatement. I mean seriously, from 2005 to around 2013, Kyle was an absolute loose cannon. He had an altercation or ongoing beef with almost every driver in the entire field. Kevin Harvick dumped his car into the pit road wall while Harvick was confronting him. Martin Truex Jr. spun him out, then rammed him in the rear under caution. Dale Earnhardt Jr. wrecked him at Richmond. Ron Hornaday wrecked him under caution while he was fighting for the championship. Clint Bowyer chased him down under yellow at Dover. His own brother crashed into him at the All-Star race. Mike Joy's line after this crash perfectly summarized Kyle in this era.
That boy's got a lot of talent, if only he can harness it on a weekly basis.
You know you're doing something wrong when the mayor, Jeff Burton, known for his calm demeanor, is scolding you on pit road after a race. Heck, he even had beef with the car after he won the first Gen 5 race at Bristol in 2007.
I'm still not a very big fan of these things. I can't stand to drive them. They suck.
Time and time again, Kyle found himself at the center of controversial moments. And especially when you wreck the most popular driver in NASCAR, you're going to become polarizing. It became an almost universal allegiance among NASCAR fans. You might be a Jeff Gordon fan, a Jimmy Johnson fan, a Dale Jr. fan, or a Tony Stewart fan, but you could all come together to agree on one thing. Kyle Busch must lose. And that's the way it was for about the first decade of his career. It wasn't like it was completely illogical though. While Kyle was an absolute speedster, it was clear he had problems keeping a cool head. His rookie season had 8 DNFs. In 2008 he won 8 races but fell apart in the chase and finished 10th in the championship. And in 2012 and 2014 he won only a single race. A far cry from his multi-win consistency over the previous 4 years. He can be as fast as lightning, but racing at the end of the day comes down to steadiness and consistency. And Kyle Busch didn't have that yet. He was a machine gun with the trigger stuck down. Nowhere near the patience and savviness of a veteran like Mark Martin or Matt Kenseth. Add in that gruesome crash in the Daytona race and the conversation became rampant. Does Kyle Busch truly have the mindset of a champion? Does he really have what it takes to fight through the pressure of the playoffs? Will he even be able to recover from the injury, considering Tony Stewart still hasn't won a race after breaking his leg?
Incredible accomplishment for this young man. He can come out of the hospital, get back in his car. He won the Xfinity race.
And off the final turn, no crutches necessary. Kyle Busch wins in Sonoma. Kyle Busch is going to clear the 22. This time he makes it stick. Kyle Busch is going to win in Kentucky. 3 out of the last 4 races Kyle Busch has won. What a rebound he has made on his season. Kyle Busch is going to add his name to the illustrious list of Brickyard 400 winners.
Kyle had won 4 of his first 9 races after returning from injury. And what's even more impressive is he did this despite having 2 of those races cut short due to wrecks at Dover and Michigan. He almost won Pocono too if he just had a little more gas in the tank. He led laps in 10 straight races from Kentucky to Chicagoland and looked like one of the best drivers in Cup again, almost instantly upon his return. And don't be fooled, this isn't a common feat. After breaking his leg, it took Chase Elliott over a year to return to victory lane, despite the fact that he had won the regular season championship the previous season. Alex Bowman similarly also took over a year to win after returning from breaking his back. So Kyle Busch coming back and instantly demolishing the competition should not have been expected in the slightest. Now, despite this hot start, Kyle did slip into a bit of a late summer slump. He didn't win any more races entering the playoffs, but still entered the playoffs as the second seed with 12 playoff points. And crucially, the NASCAR playoff system had just changed the previous season, which allowed Kyle to make it into the chase just by winning and being top 30 in points, where in previous years he would have had to point his way in, so an 11-race absence would be practically impossible to overcome. Instead, all Kyle had to do was get a waiver to be eligible, and he was ready to roll for the opening race at Chicagoland. Now, that opening race was pretty promising. Kyle led 121 laps after starting 7th, but he lost the lead to his brother in the closing laps and fell back to 9th on the final restart. The following week at Loudon wasn't so kind to him. He blew a right front tire while running in the top 10 and wound up finishing 37th. This put him already on his back foot entering the first elimination race at Dover, 1 point below the cut line. Kyle absolutely locked in at this race, driving up from 13th to 2nd in only 58 laps, where he would remain behind the dominant Kevin Harvick for most of the day and finish 1 point above the cut line to squeak into the round of 12. The pressure was mounting after his bad luck at New Hampshire, but Kyle was as cool as ice to survive in advance. The round of 12 opened at Charlotte Motor Speedway with the Bank of America 500. Kyle qualified second and ran up front for most of the race. That was until he collided with Kyle Larson while trying to fake pit. After this, Busch had some damage on his right front, had to repair it, and never was able to drive up through the field. He finished a lap down in 20th and found himself on the back foot again, 10 points down on the cut line. Fortunately for Kyle, next week was Kansas, a clean cookie-cutter oval that he could grind out a decent finish in, and that's what he did, qualifying 3rd and finishing 5th. A certain incident at the end of the race also helped his case in the points.
Sideways in front of the 22. Kansas slides. Caution comes out.
With Matt Kenseth being denied a win, Kyle bumped up a spot on the cut line, but still found himself 6 points back entering Talladega. Of course, if you know anything about NASCAR, you know that at Talladega, nobody is safe. But Kyle was in too bad of a points position to ride around in the back and dodge wrecks. He needed to run well, and for the majority of the race, ran in the top 20. Around lap 90, his teammate Denny Hamlin had to come to pit road to tape his roof hatch shut, which had been slowly opening at high speed. This proved to be critical for Kyle. One less competitor to worry about, as Denny would be trapped a lap down. Things were absolutely neck and neck between Busch and Hamlin in the points in the closing laps. 1 second they'd be tied, then Hamlin ahead, then Busch ahead. Eventually Jamie McMurray's engine expired and it was time for a restart. Due to the scary wreck at Daytona earlier in the year, NASCAR decided to only allow one attempt at the green-white checkered finish. On the restart, the field crashed before they made it to the start-finish line, so NASCAR ruled that it didn't count as an attempt. The chaos had left Kyle Busch +3 and Kevin Harvick, who had a broken transmission, +13. Harvick, who would have been eliminated if things ran green, decided to take things into his own hands and create the caution that would end the race and lock himself in. This allowed Kyle to squeak into the round of 8, navigating his way through the chaos and destruction and staying alive. As Kyle said after the Talladega race,
I've said it from the beginning, if we can make it through this round, then the next round should be pretty simple for us and on to Homestead, so we'll see how it goes.
He certainly wasn't lying. Kyle racked off 3 easy top 5s at Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix to comfortably qualify for the championship race at Miami by the time the rain came in the desert. Now came the challenge. Sure, Kyle could squeak through on points, but to become a champion, you usually have to win the championship race, and winning was something that Kyle hadn't done since 4 months prior at Indianapolis. Luckily for Kyle, though, 2 of his championship opponents weren't really true contenders. Jeff Gordon had only won 1 race all year, and the same went for Martin Truex Jr. By the midpoint of the race, they had dropped to the edges of the top 10 and were never really going to fight for the win. So the battle became Kyle Busch versus Kevin Harvick, an old rivalry rehashed, this time for the trophy. Kyle started ahead of Kevin, and by lap 20 had collected the lead. He held onto it for about 15 laps until the sun got low, and Gordon was able to take first. Then Harvick passed Kyle for second. But crucially, in a race where the sun sets, it doesn't matter how your car runs in the hot day, but how it runs in the cool night. And once it started getting dark, Kyle's car came alive once again. He ran back up to second, then eventually undercut Harvick in the pit cycle to take second from him. He stayed ahead of Harvick for over 100 laps until a late caution came out, and the final restart to decide the championship was upon us. Kyle climbed through the gears and ran at maximum speed for 7 laps, pulling away and claiming victory.
Kyle Busch missed the first 11 races of the season with a broken leg and a broken foot after an accident at Daytona. No one has battled through as much pain and had as much perseverance as 30-year-old Kyle Busch. Tonight he earns his first Cup title. Kyle Busch, the 2015 NASCAR Sprint Cup champion.
In a 10-race stretch, Kyle had finally silenced all the doubters. He was no longer the young, loose cannon, wild thing. He was now Cup Series champion and veteran, King Kyle Busch. And of course, moving forward, Kyle was now as consistent and cool as ever. He made the Championship 4 race at Miami in the next 4 seasons in a row, and in 2018 he had perhaps the most dominant season of his career. Kyle won 8 races and cemented himself as part of the Big Three on the season alongside Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. He followed this up in 2019 with another season of running the gauntlet. He hadn't won a race since Pocono in early June when he entered the playoffs. By now, the playoff system was friendlier to top drivers though, between stage points and increased playoff points, so despite some struggles in Vegas and at the Charlotte Roval, he made it through the round of 16 comfortably. Then he got through the round of 12 with good runs at Dover and Kansas. A second place in the penultimate race at Phoenix allowed Kyle to point his way into Miami once again just above the cut line. At Miami, around 100 laps in, he took the lead and fended off charges from Harvick and Hamlin to secure his second championship. By the end of the 2010s, Kyle had won more races than anyone on the decade. He was dominant, had put everything together, and was now a multi-time champion and Hall of Fame lock. Now, unfortunately for Kyle, things would never quite be the same after that championship in 2019. He hasn't led 1,000 laps in a season since then, something that he had done 10 times prior, and he hasn't made it back to the championship race, even missing the playoffs entirely in 2024. But Kyle has begun to come back in a different way. Kyle's tendency to be hated has really faded away over the past few years, and dare I say he might be one of the most beloved drivers in the sport right now. His move to Chevrolet, his calming down but still having conviction and courage, and him not dominating every race has really changed the hearts of many fans. Now it seems that everyone is on his side, and for good reason. He might be the most accomplished driver in NASCAR right now, and he's certainly one of the greatest of all time, being the winningest driver in history if you combine all 3 national series, with over 230 wins in Cup, Xfinity, and Trucks. The move to Richard Childress Racing may have made it harder for him to compete on a consistent basis, but make no mistake, Kyle Busch is one of the greatest to ever do it. Thanks for watching.